Our next speaker, Kristy Sanderson, discusses her experience working with vulnerable populations in Cambodia and how this led her to set up Voice, an NGO in Cambodia that works with the most marginalised populations. Kristy will be discussing how every person's situation is different, and that's why we need flexibility to deliver individualised solutions to assist individuals in crisis, to empower people to take ownership for their own lives and situations. So please join me in welcoming Kristy to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So hi everybody, my name's Kristy Sanderson. I'm the CEO and founder of an organisation called Voice that aims to give a voice to marginalised and disempowered people. Essentially, I set up Voice because I've been working in international development, specifically in Cambodia and in Southeast Asia, for nearly 15 years. And I'd worked for the UN in Cambodia for 5 years and for a range of other organisations on a wide range of human rights issues, human trafficking, landmines, child protection, a huge range. And most of my work for that first 15 years was around working with lawmakers, doing policies, working with high-level government officials, doing awareness raising, running a lot of trainings. And it was very kind of top-down level work, and it wasn't very direct. And I guess what I really wanted to do was make a difference directly in the lives of people who needed it most. I guess we would run a $10,000 training, which was fantastic, but then somebody on the street might consider selling themselves for $2. And I needed to be accountable to myself in what I was doing and accountable to donors, and most importantly, accountable to the people most in need, so that I could say that what I was doing and the efforts that I was making really actually helped those people. So basically, Voice works directly with people in crisis to help them access their fundamental human rights: food, shelter, healthcare, education, safety, and different livelihood options, so that they don't need us anymore. That's our main aim, to get them from crisis to independence, and ideally they don't need us anymore. So crisis has many, many different faces, and it's really important to understand that everybody has a different path to get to where they are, and they have a different path out of where they are. And it's really important to sit down and listen to people and understand their stories and to hear what they think are the solutions to their situations, because you would be surprised time and time again, well, you shouldn't be surprised, but asking somebody how they would help themselves will find you the easiest and most cost-effective ways to actually help them. So, for example, this is families that I've worked with. They were in crisis. There's 4 families here. There's a few of the men that are off screen. But the 4 families, they came together. They didn't know each other when before they became homeless and on the streets. They had come to this position from a range of different backgrounds. These families earned their income by going out at night with their children and collecting rubbish that they could recycle, and each of the families got about 50 cents per day doing that, which is scarcely enough for the families to eat. But when I asked them what they needed, the first thing they said to me was, it would be really useful if we could have just $2 headlamps, so that when we collected rubbish at night, we could see what we were doing and be more effective at doing that, and we would be able to be safer at night as well. So, you know, something that we would never have thought of without having asked them, but they came up with the most cost-effective and efficient way of helping them. Of course, there's a longer-term goals of helping them get off the street, and we've helped them do that as well. But the important message is talking to people about what their solutions are is the most cost-effective and efficient way of helping them get out of, improve their situation. My point is that helping people at the point of crisis it's the best way I can see to help prevent a whole range of human rights abuses. It's right at that point of crisis when people are desperate and are doing things and are considering things that many of us couldn't fathom even considering. There are it's right at that point of crisis when people consider doing things like selling themselves or selling their children or trying their hand at selling drugs or stealing or taking out an unpayable debt because they are desperate and they need a fix right now. And there are many different decisions to make that it's very hard for us to understand. For example, if I go back to those 4 families that I was talking to you about, there's 10 people in those 4 families. 7 of them have HIV. When I first met them, none of them were receiving HIV treatment. In Cambodia, HIV treatment is actually free. You can access it from the hospitals for free. But none of them were receiving the HIV treatment. And to actually understand why that's possible or why that would be happening, you need to understand their situation, and talking to them really helps you to do that. So basically, for them to go and get their free medication, they had to pay 50 cents to get to the hospital and 50 cents to get back, and they'd spend all day lining up to get to the hospital. So at the hospital to get their free antiretroviral treatment. So in order to have their free antiretroviral treatment, they couldn't eat for 3 days. So you've got people making decisions between food and healthcare. These are basic human rights that should be accessible to everybody. So what do? We operate a community crisis centre which directly helps over 400 people in crisis per year. We work from within slum communities and within places where there are people in crisis. We go to them. It's really important to go to them and not expect them to find you. We're a really small organisation, extremely small. I'm the only person in Australia. We have 8 staff in Cambodia and we run on around $100,000 per year. But we do provide over 16,000 meals per year. Last year we assisted 124 kids get off the street and into school. We provided emergency housing for 49 people in crisis. And we assisted 43 parents and carers to get income and employment opportunities. We allowed 120 people to access medical care when they needed it. We enabled 40 thalassemia patients to get the regular blood transfusions that they needed, thanks to our hundreds of donors that we have to work with to be able to make that possible. We have community-based staff and we use individualised case management. We conduct countless home visits and outreach visits to make sure that we go to the people and that we really understand their situation. So Voice runs 3 main projects in Cambodia. We have the Crisis to Independence project, and that many organisations will work only with children or only with females, or they'll have set answers to people's problems. It might be microfinance or legal services. But essentially, we will work in that program. We will work with anybody who is in crisis, and we will address their personalised problems and find individual solutions. We would work with an adult man without a family if he was in crisis and needed help, because everyone deserves access to their fundamental human rights. We have a children's program where we help children that are vulnerable to or working on the streets to get off the streets and into school. We also help them if it's often not a quick fix, and sometimes the kids don't want to get straight into school, so we have to go through a whole process to help them get into that. We do have a school feeding program, and we have free transport to school and school packs, but largely we work with the families to try to help the families make sure they have an income and they don't rely on the child to work, which is it's easy to say get the kids off the street and into school, but you need to understand that these families actually need the income and they need to eat. So they might need that child to work. So without replacing that need, you are not going to solve the problem. We also work with a group of people with a genetic blood disorder called thalassemia and people with HIV. They have a different vulnerability to crisis because they have ongoing medical problems. So it's not something that you can just fix their situation at once and they'll be fine forever. They've got long-term illnesses that require long-term sustainability solutions, and it's different again for every person. To give you a bit of a background on the types of strange scenarios that might occur to get somebody in crisis and that get somebody to come and meet meet with us. This is Bore, and Bore came to us at our Community Crisis Centre. She came with 4 of her children and her mother, and they were homeless. The reason they were homeless was because they had just been evicted from their house because the landlord was very concerned that she was about to give birth to her baby. Most likely she was going to do that in her house, and there was a high chance that either herself or her child would die during in that birthing process. The reason he evicted her was because if one of them died, he would be left with a ghost. And in Cambodia, there's a huge superstition to not want to live in a place that is haunted by a ghost. So it meant that if that did happen, he couldn't rent or sell his property any further. So it devalued his property, so he couldn't risk that, and he couldn't let her stay any further. And nobody else would let her stay there either. So they were homeless and on the street. They were living in the recycle. This is their rubbish collecting cart that they go and collect recyclable products. They were living underneath and around that at night. Her mother had severe tuberculosis and was very contagious. So we helped her get medication, but we mainly helped her by acting as a guarantor for her to say, we promise we will help Bore have her baby at a hospital, and therefore will you let her stay there? And because they trusted us, they allowed her to stay there. So that cost us nothing, but it helped her to get out of crisis. We also, her son also came to us when we met her. He had a big burn on his foot. He had trodden on burnt plastic when they were collecting rubbish. And so simple first aid and a second-hand pair of shoes can prevent something that is as simple as this and as common as this from turning into something like an amputated leg, which it can actually happen. Children can die from infected sores. And so, 50 cents worth of first aid might be the difference between life and death. And unfortunately, it is that baseline. Sometimes it is that simple. If you take the problems one by one, you can really change a person's life. So Bore had her baby at a hospital. She was very, very grateful that we were able to help her have that baby, that she asked us to name her baby. When she was at hospital, she had 3 people come up to ask her if she wanted to give her baby away. And she was very tempted to sell her baby. She was very tempted because she was very worried that she couldn't provide the baby the life that she thought the baby deserved. And we had to constantly reassure her that we would help her be able to do that. Nowadays, so this is baby Lily, and her mother is healthy and not showing any signs of TB anymore. Her other children go to school, and we've helped Bore get access to a job, and she pays her rent, and they're now out of crisis. They don't need us anymore. So basically, we help people who are homeless and sick, unsafe, and we help them get access to their very basic human rights: food, shelter, healthcare, safety, and livelihood options, so that they don't need us anymore. Essentially, we really make a difference using individualised and personalised solutions. I feel comfortable now, after 15 years, that our work really does make a difference. We make a difference in people's lives one by one. And please check out our website, like us on Facebook, Twitter, tweet me or whatever you do. Be involved in our work and help us make a difference to people's lives one by one. Thank you.
If anyone has any questions for Kristy, please make your way to the microphone. Eddie, hello.
Hey, how you going again? Yes, Kristy. So I was wondering, as an individual, I see so many great charities out there, and I find it's hard to either donate my money or time to all of them, right? So I'm just wondering, as an individual, what would you suggest we can do to help in some way? Like whether it's volunteering for a certain amount of time or just some suggestions for us to get involved.
Yeah, I know most charities would have a generic answer to this, and one thing I would ask each of you to think about is what your skills are. If you were in my situation, I set up a charity a few years ago, right, and I'm trying to make it work. And I feel very confident in what we do on the ground, making a difference. But if you were me trying to make that happen, what could you do? How could you use your skills? How could you, if it's fundraising always helps, but if it isn't, do you have other skills that you think we could utilise? You know, people say charities are dead, and definitely I can see there's a lot of pressure on us to find different models to be able to make it sustainable and make it last. And, you know, is that where you come at the solution from? But basically, I would say the same way as at the other end, where we're helping people with individualised solutions. I think it depends on you and your skills and what you think you could bring to the table.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi. I'm Sam, and I'm a high school student, and I was wondering, do you have like volunteer programs and stuff? Because there are some companies like that do like schoolies kind of thing in Cambodia to help like organise it and stuff like that. Do you have things like that?
We don't. The reason we don't, I've seen a lot of very negative impacts of volunteerism. Essentially, especially the people that we work with, a lot of them, especially the children, and that's what people often want to go over and play with kids for a while, a lot of them have been abandoned by people in their lives. And the worst thing I could possibly do is introduce to them somebody for a short amount of time that comes in and is brilliant and gives them all the love and care and then leaves them again. So I've just enhanced their attachment disorders that they've already got. Essentially, my background's child protection as well, so I'm really conscious of making sure any volunteer placement is purposeful and has a clear goal. And if that is, I would work with an individual to make that clear goal, and I would, if it meant that they would go to Cambodia and would require meeting our clients, that the clients would also be aware of what they're there for and what their purpose is. So we don't do things like going over and playing with kids for a year, which is often what those volunteerism programs do. So I would be more focused on upskilling yourself so that you're useful, so that when you do volunteer, that you're doing it with a purpose and that you have something to offer.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. And please, do you have a question? Just one more. Just time for one more.
Thank you for your comments, particularly around listening to people and hearing their solutions. I spent the last 6 years living in Southern Africa doing income projects, basically social enterprise and stuff. And I've come back to Australia now and seen a huge disparity between what people I talk to there say they need and what, well, the aid industry and the anti-poverty movement in Australia sort of talks about. There's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I talk to people there and they say, well, individually I need a job, and nationally what we need as a nation is we need good government and good land rights and institutions and things like that. How do we bridge that gap? How do we hear those people and how do they get a voice to teach us in the West? I know that's a huge question.
Well, at first it starts with people listening and wanting to listen rather than just assuming there is an answer or there is one answer. And I guess... thank you, though, for your question. It's a really big one. My individual solution was to set up Voice and to listen to people individually. I guess it's a really important thing for people to be wary of a set solution that fixes everything, because I really don't believe that is possible on the ground. And I've seen that in many, many different cases. When I first went to Cambodia, I was going from village to village, and all of the people were really excited about this one particular project where they were like, they call all organisations, they call them ONCA organisation. They don't know the names of them. They're just like, there's so many of them, it's just an organisation. They said, this one organisation keeps coming in and giving us fishing nets, and it's the best thing we've ever had. This organisation is brilliant. We've just got these fishing nets. It's great. And then I'd go to the next place and they would say, we've got these fishing nets. This organisation's great. And then I tried to find out what this project was that the people were so happy about. And it ended up being a huge international health organisation handing out mosquito nets to stop malaria. But nobody, they would have sat back and looked at an area on a map and thought, deaths by malaria in this area are a huge problem. And they've gone, okay, mosquito nets might fix that. But without going in to talk to the people, you're never going to have an effective project. That was actually a very effective project if you talk to the people, but it wasn't necessarily going to help malaria at all. But essentially, if you don't help people's primary needs, then you're never going to be able to help their tertiary needs. So predetermined mandates are something to be very sceptical about.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.